Everybody, welcome to You, Me, and YTV. And today I am speaking with Justyn, whose love of YTV he wears on a sleeve. A tattoo sleeve, that is. More on that in a second. See you in a few. Did you grow up in Canada? Were you alive in the 90s? Did you love YTV? Yeah, you did. We censored. We're getting cheering. Hey, dude, what's going on? We met exactly 8 seconds ago. And
8 seconds ago.
You heard me swearing under my breath. I feel like we really got to know each other. But let's really get to know each other. Dude, the reason why we're here today is because you messaged a page with some rad information. You have some cool YTV tattoos. Now, here's a shot of just a few of your many tattoos you have on your sleeve right there, including your handsome face up there. And it's something that really comes out to me. Like, I've seen Dragon Ball tattoos before. I've seen Goosebumps tattoos before. But I have never, ever seen a student bodies tattoo before. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But it's just amazing, man. Like that kind of love and devotion. Like, I have 2 tattoos, and they hurt like shit. And sorry for swearing, everyone. And I don't enjoy the process of the healing, but you clearly do. And you said yourself, I love YTV so much, I will bleed for this. Can you take me back to when you made this decision to transform your body forever as a tribute to our childhood?
Oh my God, yeah, I totally can. How do I put this? All right, so I was like, I always grew up wanting tattoos, and I grew up loving YTV. That was like my coming after school, just coming home and watching TV was YTV or Fox Kids, which I also share a love for. But it defined like 10 years of my life. Well, not really 10 years, like five or 6 years of my life that I was aware of. And then I grew up and I wanted to be a fucking rock star. So sorry for swearing.
I don't care. It's gone. We tried.
We tried. All right.
No. We were minors in the We were minors in the 90s, so it's a little different. You know what I mean?
See what you mean. I see what you mean. So I grew up and wanted to be a rock star. Like full-fledged everything. And I always adored tattoos. But I didn't want to get I didn't just want to get tattooed to get tattooed. Yeah. And I was seeing like a lot of my friends get a lot of the same type of things, the skulls, the roses, type of thing. And it's cool, but I wanted something that was like something that I don't really think that tattoos need to mean anything to people, but like you can just get them because you like them. But for me, I wanted it to show off a little bit of who I was. And I wanted it to stand out a little bit, something that would catch people's attention, maybe be conversation starters. And it was before the real like nostalgia time for like YTV that came in. And I was driving around. I still remember thinking about it. I was driving around thinking about what should I get for my first tattoo? I wanted something that would be like capture people's attention. And immediately I thought of the Ghastly Grinner.
I couldn't find all my photos, everybody, so you're going to have to keep dealing with this montage. But if you look at the bottom, almost left there, the Ghastly Grinner is one of the classic episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? And also one of the few shows that would feature comic books on a major television show for quite some time. So as soon as I saw a comic book episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, I was like, and really jumped into that. So Ghastly Grinner, why does that stand out to you out of all of them,
Because I'm glad you asked, because I remember thinking about it and explaining to people, like my friends and everything, why I was going to get specifically this, because they kept saying Joker. It was like a year or two after Dark Knight came out, so it was like everyone said Joker. I said, no, it's not. It's a jester, and it's from an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark called Ghastly Grinner. Now, at the time, people would go, oh, yeah, I remember that show. In the last, 10 years, it's gone from, oh, my God, I love that show. And I explained to people that the Ghastly Grinner meant something to me because, to this day, it's still probably one of the more terrifying depictions of a villain that I've seen. Yeah. He was really psychotic. I guess if a good depiction of a Joker would be the Ghastly Grinner, but I wasn't afraid of it when I was a kid. I loved it.
Romaram says Crimson Clown would have been their personal choice. Yeah, I would have got Sardo, right in the middle of correcting someone how to pronounce a name, just like.
See, all brilliant fucking ideas. I love Sardo. I love that. Yeah. I still remember episodes hearing that. I'll talk with my dad, and he'll probably still say it's Sardo, accent on the dough, right? So I went and got it done, and after that, after I had the first tattoo done, it did exactly what I wanted. It was attention grabbing. People were asking where it was from, and then over a couple of years, people started getting that bigger reaction, like, oh, I love that show. And over that time, I was like, what I want to get a sleeve. I want to do something with the sleeve. I want to fill up my arms and the rest of my body, which I've only done one arm so far. But I kind of stuck with that idea of like, I want to show love for or an appreciation for YTV, because I do have a real, like, I really do feel that it was an amazing channel for Canadian television in the 90s. That the whole trope of like, you want to have good, wholesome television for children. Well, I think that was the quintessential channel for kids. And I'm so happy to have been alive and aware of what we had back then.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I recalled so many things that I wanted to get done. I was like, Student Bodies was first of mind. Goosebumps was the next one that I had gotten done. And I'd always carried a love with Dragon Ball. That never really faded as I grew up. People always talked about Dragon Ball, but I had forgotten that it was once on YTV. See, right there, and it's still one of my favorite stuff. I mean, I got a whole bookshelf full of fucking Dragon Ball shit.
Yeah.
So actually, it just, you have to, like, it's almost like you have to show some love for it.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I found these the other day in my office. This is Dragon Ball Z Volume 1. That I got at a friend's yard sale, and he sold it to me for like 45 cents, and I'm like, you idiot!
You idiot!
Okay, sure.
Moron.
And here's 1 and 3 of the original Dragon Ball. I think this is when he's training with Master Roshi and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like in those books, how fast the stories go. There's not like 3 episodes of powering off; it flies. But anyway, sorry. So you love Dragon Ball and.
Yeah, so I started thinking about it and like, what I could do with my arm. And at the time, people were getting more like Marvel or DC superhero tattoos if they were going to go in that. What's up, Brandon? If people were getting more of the Marvel DC type of things, if they were going to get some, I guess, nerdy type of tattoo art. And I always loved Spider-Man. I loved the MCU. Even before then, I was always into that. I mean, Spider-Man was on TV as a kid, and I still remember that. X-Men, Fox Kids, Power Rangers is still my favorite series out of all of them. I mean, you could see there's toys from when I was a child there. Power Rangers is huge for me, but it still was not the same thing as like the whole love of the series of like YTV shows.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to do this. I want to show up. It's cool. It gets to the reaction that I want, that I was looking for. It's something that means a lot to me. And I think you don't really have a lot of that, artifacts, I guess, when you're trying to preserve, that preservation of what we have in the 90s as like a YTV. It's only in our minds most of the time.
You're preaching to the choir, sir.
Yeah, right. And I had the idea years ago, was just saving up the money to do it and finding the right artist. And then that's just how I kind of found out about this channel, like you, me, and YTV, because I was like, I can't be the only guy around here or in the country who thinks like this, because it meant so fucking much to me. Like just bringing it up and talking about specific episodes that I had to find out.
Something interesting you were saying about the channel, and it's not just the shows, but the channel that broadcasted them and seeing all the shows together. It kind of reminds me of, like Epitaph Records or Fat Records, where you look at those bands and you could love the bands, but you knew they were all part of this thing together. And that's what I thought of the shows. And then later on, starting this series, a friend of mine was telling me, pretty much bringing up that all the X-Men actors were from Toronto. And I'm like, what? When I was a kid, I thought the only famous people were the Bare Naked Ladies and Serial Joe. Like, I had no idea the depth of talent we had in our backyard that was broadcast to us under the guise that it was American shows that we were lucky enough to get. And Canada, when it came to dubbing anime, we're like one of the first ones, if not the first one. And Beast Wars was just a bunch of Canadian boys in Vancouver, doing their thing. And the cast of Sailor Moon, all Toronto. It's a Samurai Pizza Cat. It's right in Montreal. It's freaking. See, I'm trying to keep my cool together. But don't worry. You're a guest. You can say what you want. But it's by the way, I believe our homie is bringing up your band.
Yes,
we should mention. We should talk. We'll talk about Orchid a little bit later. But it's I pronounced that right correctly.
You did, yeah.
Like I don't pronounce anything right. Like,
well, people call it Orchad, so it's all good.
Okay, well, we'll talk about Orchad in a bit. Ocean Dub was a legend. That's true. See, we got so many lovely people commenting. Any love for freaky stories? Well, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes, immense love for freaky stories.
I'm assuming,
right there.
Yeah, right there on the bottom left, you could get a real good shot of him. Yeah, that's the thing about freaky stories, and especially when I first saw freaky stories, it was because it was part of that Dark Knight. The Dark Knight night where they would play all the horror shows in a row. And back in the days, kids, when you couldn't pick what you were streaming and you had to rigorously record things in a row, if you wanted to feel any sort of compilation feel to what you were watching, you were at the mercy of broadcasting. And when they provided us with that pre-Halloween night of just scary based shows, it was the best freaking night ever, dude. I can't tell you how excited I was for it.
Everything was amazing about it.
But Freaky Stories really clearly, touched you. What's a standout moment of Freaky Stories that you can remember that said, "Man, I need this on my arm"?
My God, there's a few, but the one that I always have to bring up, because my mother always says this, like every 6 months or so, she'll bring up, it happened to a friend of mine, because of that, specifically because of that show. I know the saying is it predates the show, but it was the way that they said it. And I think Larry the Mooch is another standout moment of that one, because I used to just make fun of that guy when I was a kid with friends, and I still remember that. The hook on the car, they had real urban legend stories that you would hear later on. The grandmother who sucked all the chocolate off the peanuts and paid for like a car ride. I remember so much from it, but trying to find them, at least now they're pretty easy to find, but over the last 10 years and trying to rewatch all of them has been hard.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, some of them, I think they're on Tubi or something. Tubi TV is like a great app that's keeping a lot of my favorite shows alive, like Beast Wars Reboot. Someone asked before, and apologies for not seeing, there's been about 100 comments since then, but they said, what's your favorite Reboot character? Now, I have a pretty good idea who your favorite Reboot character probably is.
Oh, man. But, so my favorite will always be Matrix, but with a lot of love for Bob. The reason why Matrix is I pictured myself as Boy Enzo when I was a child, and he grew up to be this badass, and I'm like, if I'd like to be that. He was like the epitome of the guy I wanted to be when I grew up, and I have a lot of love for Bob and a lot of love for Glitch. I got to give Glitch that one. There was it's hard to pick a real favorite, but Matrix is up there just because he had that eye, man. It was so badass. He survived the internet. Looking at it now, it has so much meaning to me that he survived the internet.
It would have been great if when they Reboot, they just go online and fight a series of trolls, like literal digital viral trolls. That would have been freaking great. Bringing up Matrix and the transformation between Enzo, the lovable kid, Rick Jones to the Avengers type character. Rick, that's a very old Avengers reference. You see, in the 60s, kids, everyone had a little kid sidekick that was kind of useless, and they keep him around for that. Oh, golly gosh, Jellicers. Hey, Herc. That type of stuff.
Kids can relate.
Yeah. So Enzo was kind of an annoying character before, who would kind of put himself in danger and make the adults go, and try to save him. But then Bob gets thrown into the net by Megabyte, which traumatized me. And then in a few episodes later, that would further traumatize me, is when Enzo's in a kind of Mortal Kombat game and loses, and he's lying there. And kids, back in the day, when you had to wait until the next day or week to see what would happen, was the longest waiting period ever. I thought he was dead. I was like, oh my, Enzo's dead. Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
And then when you see the next episode, and it's brilliant. In fact, I interviewed the writer of that episode, actually. And apologies for spacing on the name at the second, but she's the creator. She's the co-creator of Gem and the Holograms. And she wrote that episode. And when you first see Andrea, be a woman, and I was going through puberty back then, so that was a sight to behold. But seeing Enzo come out, and all of a sudden he's a 6-foot guy with muscles on his muscles, and you're just like, I thought he was I thought, what do you call them again when they lose the game and they're like, it's like
sprites.
Or that
the
squiggly thing. They're sprites, but when they a null or something.
Man. Yes, it's a null.
null.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a null, and no, he was not a null. He was a dude.
He was like
no Quill, no Quill. No Quill, you're a dude. No Quill, I have to give, you're a dude.
I have to give so much credit to that. I have to give so much credit to that the series writing, because looking back on it, the way that I took away the subtext from it was Enzo and Andrea go into the internet and they come back out jaded as fuck. And that's, look at what happened. This is before the internet became what it was. This was like the most internet you had was messaging forums and downloading illegal music, or illegally downloaded music. So I thought that was a real nice foreshadowing of the future to come.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like it looks like Enzo spent like 6 months on a Snyder Cut message board or something and just came back just angry and bitter.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's crazy. Throughout the series, I've had we're talking about all these shows, and I've had such luck to interview such people as the Students Bias cast and some of the voice cast of Reboot. Both Bobs have been on the show individually.
Yeah.
And it's just been lovely to go down memory lane like that. But I got to ask you, man, like when exactly, when you got that first tattoo, when did you say to yourself, I got to get the next one? And then how long was it afterwards before the next one, before you had that idea in your head that this is going to be a thing, I'm going to finish this?
Okay, so I have an answer for this. I haven't thought about it in a little while, but I knew as soon as I got tattooed is when I wanted the next one. But that came years after the fact, because right around that point, all my money was being funneled into playing music. And the tattoos I wanted good, nice looking tattoos. I didn't want to cheap out, and I had a lot of friends who had shitty tattoos, so they didn't want to go down that route. When I really decided to really do it, I was like 24, 25. I wasn't playing. I had stopped playing music for a little while, and professionally, I had paid off a bunch of the debt that I had accrued from there, and I was ready to I want to finish my arm now. I want to do this more for myself than anything else. And the next one that I got was, I wanted something that was just as appealing or eye-catching, which was, I got the Goosebumps cover, the Haunted Mask. It's actually 2 covers. It's the Haunted Mask and then Werewolf of Fever Swamp in the background.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to say right now that Tim Jacobus, who originally drew the Haunted Mask, it's his birthday today.
Oh my God! Well, happy birthday if he's watching around.
Yeah,
there.
Tim, I don't think you're watching, but if you are, everybody out there in internet land right now, just Tim Jacobus, who painted every single cover of the Goosebumps book series, with the exception of 2, which were later re-released under his art. Anyway, he is a legend, and he was born today, so let's all praise his name because he's amazing. But please continue.
Yeah. So no worries.
Yeah,
I wanted to get Goosebumps. It was my favorite book series as a kid, specifically because of the art. Because when I reread the books later on, I was like, these are definitely kids' books. I loved them as a kid, but reading them, I can't read them. It takes me an hour and I'm done. But I love the artwork. The artwork meant so much to me. That's what I remember all my friends wanting to get them just because of the artwork.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of researching, and I wanted to do the whole sleeve. I was like, I'm content. I picked out a whole bunch of characters that I wanted to get on the arm. So I I was thinking of what were all the shows that I wanted to get the new Addams Family, but couldn't really find much there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do, I guess, stick more in the cartoon sense. So I found a tattoo artist named Melissa Valakit, who I had known. Yeah, Mel did my entire arm.
She's amazing.
I've known her before. Yeah,
she's one of the best in the city. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was weird. I had known her beforehand through mutual friends. And I did a bunch of research because I wanted these to stick out. I wanted these to be really pop off my arm if they could. And I did
they do.
So much, try to find out so many artists who do color realism. And I ended up on one tattoo site, ended up being her. And I'm like, I know Mel. And straight up I waited the whole year to get an appointment because she only takes appointments twice a year, specifically because I wanted her to do this and the rest of the arm. And we did it over 3 or 4 or 5 sessions of 6 or 7 hours each. And And the longest or the biggest part of it is, I don't actually know if anyone notices, it's the GameCube from fucking Reboot is all the way down the arm. So like, when the game is
wow, crazy! Wait, let's get a shot.
I don't know if you can see it well.
Here, let's zoom in on you. Oh yeah. That's what that is.
That's what it is. Yeah. So they're all just kind of going into the net or the game.
Tempting Jamie Ellman to participate.
Oh yeah, student bodies right there. I love them.
Okay, here's a question, and the amazingness that is Mick Perlis even jokingly said, "Hey, where's the Victor one today in the announcement?" Why Chris and Cody? I know it's because it pretty much starts and ends with those two dudes and all the shenanigans they get into.
Yeah, so like it's exactly what you said. It starts and ends with them. They were like the main characters of the show, and Chris specifically, I thought he was hilarious, and he is like he's like a veteran of YTV. He was on Are You Afraid of the Dark? You can see like other episodes of television. Like I think he may have been in an episode of Goosebumps at one point. I can't really recall, but he was like a person there, and I loved Vic. I loved all the characters there.
Me too.
I had to make some choices to like who I wanted to have separated out, and I didn't just want to have like a student body's arm.
Well, I agree with you. Still out vouching for Flash supremacy, best girl. Flash was my favorite character because I always thought, she was the only character that didn't think like boys were like icky. Like, kind of seemed to be the only one that was very, because I've always been kind of attracted to they make the move because I'm always like, I haven't been single in 10 years. But even when I was just kind of like, what do you do? What's wrong? Because all my friends are girls, right? So I hear all the horror stories. So I hear all these other guys who are oblivious of those horror stories that just go for it every single time. And I hear all this shit talking about the person later. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Then a Flash type person comes along and they says, "Hey," and I'm like, "Oh, good. Hi. Yes. Hello."
Yeah, I know what you mean. I love all of those characters. It's really hard. There are certain TV shows where I just like characters I just don't care for, but for like student bodies, I love them all. Like I recognize all, like even remembering like Romeo, and the shenanigans that they would get into. I remember like specific lines from that show. That's how much it meant to me, to the point where I remember being like 8 years old and saying, "This show is never getting canceled because it's been on for so long." Later realizing it was only on for 2 seasons.
Three actually, but not a zillion people saw the third. Well, all kind of Canadian TV shows, they always kind of like they make enough to syndicate and then they kind of stop. That's kind of the Canadian way. It happened with Are You Afraid of the Dark with the original series, and there was just, it seemed like there were more episodes because they'd only make about 11 or 13 a year. So
yeah.
But dude, this is the only one I have because we decided to do this kind of like a little bit last minute, and I've been a little busy, but even though he's not here right now, I have a special message from somebody who I think it's a little relevant.
Hey, how you doing? This message is for Justyn Vynn. Justin, this is Jamie Ellman, aka
Nice
Cody. Ryan showed me your tattoo, and I had to say that it is really something wondrous and special to be on a show that people remember many years later. But to know that someone has immortalized me, not me, but Cody, as a tattoo on your flesh forever, something that I personally wouldn't do for a Cody tattoo or anything else. That's really cool, man. So I'm glad to know you did that. That's cool. I wish you hadn't ruined it by putting Ross on there too. But, yeah, it's all right. It's good.
That's brilliant. That was amazing. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Oh, no problem, man. Well, you're the only student bodies tattoo I've ever heard of. So it's maybe there is some out there. But, I was just like, well, I know and work with Jamie very often, so I should.
I appreciate that a lot. That's fucking cool. And I never really met anybody from the YTV era.
Okay.
Met a lot of rock stars, but not no one from YTV.
I know, but you know what I mean. I meet rock stars and I meet actors, and the only ones I really ever get like a little starstruck about was originally like, the YTV ones, because they were just a little bit more like important to my world back in the day. We're talking like every single day you watched The Zone. So
exactly,
meeting Phil was a little strange the first time, but then now I'm used to it. Now we call each other just like, hey dude, can you help ship something from your city? It's like, yeah, sure, dude, of course. Like that's just the way it is after a little while. Oh, people are saying epic. It's nice to share this moment and put you on the spot publicly. Someone brought up a really interesting question, and I really think it's a good one to ask. What about a snit tattoo? You ever think about getting a snit tattoo?
Yeah, that was a question that came up a lot from people who remembered it. I thought about getting the snit tattoo, but I kind of once again, arm space. So I settled for something else that's a little bit more of an Easter egg, and it's the YTV stereo that came up at the bottom at the end credits or at the beginning credits of the show.
Yeah.
And you have that little TV kind of right there. Oh my God, right
here.
Oh
my God, you have stereo on your arm. That's crazy.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Oh, so that's rad.
The TV would have done it a little bit.
Oh, yeah, and someone else is bringing up Warren Chester Grog. Well, we've already established there's only so much skin. But the Grogs, I love the Grogs because I love the Muppets. So when there's puppets and people hanging out, Nesbitt's not here today, but, hanging out with Nesbitt and looking a puppet in the eye, having a genuine conversation is some of the best times I've ever had in my life, to be honest.
I can only imagine. I never had that experience, but it's arm space. And the fact that, like, I picked shows that I really remembered the most from.
Of course,
because it sucks. Like if I were to pick a TV show and I can barely remember it, and someone's like, "Oh, you got that tattoo, but you can barely remember the show."
That's like people wearing Misfit T-shirts that don't know the difference between Danzig and Grace. It pisses me off. It's not that hard. They sound really different.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to get stuff that I really, really remembered.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, I think that's important, actually. In fact, kind of like it's on your skin for the rest of your life. You want it to mean something. You want it to have a reaction. Like I have a cat tattooed on my chest here, but I had that cat. I had a cat for 18 years, dude. 18 years. That was like, and I wanted to keep her alive somehow. So it's like what you're talking about with YTVs and the memories and stuff. I'm getting so distracted by all these great comments. I have met the voice of Luna from Sailor Moon and Artemis, who provided the voice of Coach Lederhosen on Sticking Around. I'm glad you brought up Sticking Around. Sticking Around was hilarious. I love Russell. All he said is what?
I remember like the art of Sticking Around. I remember like at one point disliking it and then really liking it after, but I cannot for the life of me remember any characters' names or scenarios that happened. I just remember the art of it, and I thought it was great. And speaking of Sailor Moon, I do have a Sailor Moon tattoo.
Okay, let's get this.
Oh, forced, tuxedo mask. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh dude. Yeah, man. Fuck, I love Tuxedo Mask back in the day, and it's funny when you rewatch it, you're like, all he really ever did was show up, throw a rose, and
that was it,
and F off, and you're like, huh. That's all you got to do. That guy's got it made. He doesn't sweat.
I mean, I dressed as him, an 8-year-old for Halloween. I won his tuxedo mask, and that was like my first taste of girls going, "Oh my God!" So I had to get some love. It was my sister's favorite show, so I had to throw that on there.
Oh, that's amazing, man. I love that show, but I wouldn't. And I had this friend named Scott in elementary school who's the other guy that likes Sailor Moon, and every day in the school bus we'd talk to each other about the previous episode in very hushed tones, but nowadays that's what I love about being old. I'm fearless. I don't care. I'm like, I love Sailor Moon.
As a child I was like, I hate that show, that's for girls. And as I grew up, I was like, I was an idiot. It was a female version of Power Rangers, which I also loved and was cheesy as shit. So I still remember episodes of that like crazy. Like the first season storylines were brilliant.
The Bachelor Tuxedo Mask. It's true. Who was your favorite Sailor Scout? We like. I loved Sailor Mars and Sailor Jupiter. And after meeting the actresses who played them, because Jupiter was just badass, man. She punched the crap out of anybody, and Mars was
Jupiter was badass, and Mars had the best attitude.
Yeah. Just always. My sister's name's Serena. So I think there's just something being that young and seeing someone just seeing somebody constantly give someone named Serena crap. I felt had power. I didn't, because she's about 5 years older than me. So yeah.
Oh damn! No, Mars and Jupiter are for me for sure.
Getting a lot of comments about just loving old school YTV. And Bernadette's a big friend of the show. She loves Sailor Moon and Power Rangers. Is there any other YTV shows on your like that you love so much but don't really necessarily have the arm space for? But in your heart, in tattoo of your heart and mind, you would have?
Yeah, two specifically that I wish I could have gotten, but it just didn't make any sense. One of which is, like I mentioned earlier, the new Addams Family. Loved that show. Thought it was hilarious.
Man. That's great.
I still remember watching it. Like all the shows, I still remember watching them, but that one specifically, like my dad liked watching it too, and he knew some of the actors on there too.
Oh, nice.
And then the other one is not even really a show that you might be expecting. Hit List.
Okay.
I think the Hit List gets slept on way too much in Canada. Like it introduced so many acts and made the Backstreet Boys who they were.
Absolutely. Tarzan Dan was telling us on this show that the last time he saw the Backstreet Boys live in concert, they told him, I'm like, okay, you're going to be here, right? You're going to be at this time. He's like, yeah. So it's in the middle it's at the concert. And they gave him the ticket and they put a spotlight on him and said, this was the guy who played us for the first time in Canada and helped break us.
I think I've seen something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just really nice to know that the boys, like, you know, after all that kind of time, remembered, you know, where they came from and how they made it, because it's really true, though, because in Canada, French radio had already caught on to them and they really caught on in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
But the rest of Canada, after they saw him on the hit list, it really picked up. And that's another group that I really liked, but wouldn't tell anybody back in the day. Being a kid sucks.
You're always one that as a kid, I let people know that I liked them, and then I grew a little older, and then I started playing guitar, and I was like, "Fuck the Backstreet Boys." And then I grew out of that phase of trying to impress people, and I was like, "No, the Backstreet Boys are like one of my favorite artists ever."
Yeah, I just love good songwriting, good pop, and I can tell you 20 Backstreet Boy songs, and I sound like an old man yelling at a cloud, but I'm like, I think I honestly think One Direction is useless, because I hear a song and I'm like, there's nothing in there. Like there's five dudes singing, but there's no harmony, and I'm a big Beach Boys guy, so I'm like, what's the point of having five of you? You all sound, unless I was watching the video, you all have the same tone, you know?
Yeah, like, I would agree on the One Direction part, because I didn't like them either, but I like a lot of pop music, and the guy who wrote Backstreet Boys music is Max Martin, and he's still writing music today.
Tell me about Max Martin, sir. What else has he written?
Oh my God, he's done. If you really want Katy Perry, he's done Taylor Swift. Basically, if it's a #1 song in the last 10 years, he probably.
Well, that's like working for Coke and Pepsi. That's funny.
He does everybody because he's the one who's going to get you that #1 song. He's The Weeknd. He worked with The Weeknd on his. Weeknd's one of my favorite artists too. He's cool. He did not ABBA, Ace of Base first, and then went to the Backstreet Boys, and then blew up from there. So yeah, big fan.
Awesome. I like how we went down this rabbit hole of 90s pop music, but that's the best thing about and Tarzan Dan and the Hit List. What I loved about them is that, you know, we have all these. I remember specifically when HMV started to break up music into different genres. You know, I remember when there was enough metal music to warrant a metal section and a punk section. But when I was young, man, the stores didn't give a crap. They just put everything, Metallica, Green Day, and all that, in rock pop. That's what they did. They just put it all in there. So you had to look at all the albums to find something that you wanted to see, but your brain still registered that this other music existed. I find now when you I always screw up this word, but when you compartmentalize, I don't know, you know, that big
compartmentalize,
yeah. You know, when you do that with music, you're actually kind of really losing out. And I find that that's kind of like the brain you get when you're a teenager, where you're in a punk band and someone tells you you're not allowed to listen to rap music. And in hindsight, you're like, why the hell did I listen to these jerks? Like, what would it would have just improved my band to be a little bit more broad when it came to my imagination and composition and stuff.
Yeah, I feel you. I don't like genres. I don't like. I understand why we have them, but I think people think, oh, I'm gonna write music today, and it's gonna be metal, or it's gonna be rock and roll, or pop music. And if you don't listen to metal, if you only listen to metal, you're not gonna like this. Whereas if you just write the music, and it ends up being what it ends up being. Because then a lot of bands start to get like, I don't want to sound like these bands, so we're not gonna do this thing on this song. And I don't like that.
No, me neither. And turning back to YTV, I think what I loved about that station too is that they didn't really give a crap about specific shows. Like there wasn't like 5 Dragon Balls in a row, man. They'd lump it right next to Dragon Ball, and then you'd watch like Reboot and Beast Wars. And Beast Wars and Reboot, I think Shadow Raiders, I'm told. I haven't seen that one, but I'm told it's kind of like all that mainframe studio look. But really, they would show you shows from England. Yeah. Like Perfect, what was it called? Perfect Forever Night, I think, with the vampire.
Oh, man, yeah. Oh, my God. I'm struggling on the name as well, but I know exactly what you mean. It's been a while.
Exactly. But then they'll play a show like Catwalk that has sex and drugs in it at like midnight.
Oh, yeah. I remember watching Catwalk.
I loved Catwalk, man. So many people are someone finally
4:30.
Yep, 4:30. That's true. And that's kind of like when that zone started. And I just remember it being like a pivotal part of my day, not just for my own enjoyment, but socially the next day, talking about Beast Wars with the kids at school. And that's the first Transformers series I ever liked. I had no use for the one in the 80s because I was just a little too young. And by the time I started watching, I'm like, all I want is Energon. Like every episode, every episode's the same freaking thing. Like when it came to Beast Wars, it's like, this is like Gilligan's Island with badass robots that turn into gorillas and tarantulas. And you're trying to get off the planet. And then later when Lost came out, I'm like, unless it's got Optimus Prime, I don't give a shit.
So like one of the things that was that for me when I was a kid was Pokemon. Like it had just started there. It was the first generation of kids who got Pokemon. And I remember going to school the next day and basically it was like, well, did you see the episode, man?
Okay.
And, so that was my show for that.
Dude, I'm a little older than you, so when Pokemon came out, I reacted like the parents in South Park, where they just don't get it. But I really liked Digimon because that played when I'd wake up kind of with a teenage hangover, and I would watch Digimon and I'd be like, oh, they're trying to get off the island. This makes sense. With Pokemon to me, I'm just like, I never saw the first episode, and that's why. And the first episode is pivotal. I only saw the first episode last year of Pokemon. So all this time, he's just running around and he's trying to become the master. I'm like, why? But then I saw the first episode. I'm like, oh, Gary's a dick. That's why he needs to become the Pokemon master. Gary's an asshole. So yeah.
It was the games, the video, the Game Boy game was what got us into it. And then they had the show, and we just fucking loved it.
Were you one of those grown adults wandering into people's backyards with that Pokemon Go game?
No. Okay. I play it, but I wasn't one of those. Nice. I wasn't so enamored by my phone that I was walking down manholes and shit.
Nice. All right, everybody. So, okay. Oh yeah. Everyone's just mentioning about Digimon right now. So, dude. YTV, when did you find you grew out of it? Because I know we're all like, we all become teenagers. We all find something else. It's not that I turned off the TV one day in disgust or anything like that. I just eventually kind of realized, oh, I'm a teenager. I want to do other stuff. And now it's the next generations. Like now it's their turn. And some great DJs, PJs came after my time. Like Sugar and Carlos was a big. They were the big deal. Raid, as I was getting a little, I was aging out, but thought they were great. When exactly was your like final YTV-ish year?
So it gets a little money after the year 2000. I still watched it for sure. I was like 10, 11 years old. But the last thing I can legitimately remember about YTV was at the time sometime between 2000 and 2002. I'm thinking more later 2001, 2002.
Okay.
My parents had there was something that happened with Videotron where the cable was cut and all the TV went out. Right, everything went out for everybody in Quebec who had Videotron. And I remember my friend at the time, my elementary school friend named Rami, he had called me up and he's like, "Hey man, is your TV working? Because I really want to watch Beyblade." And I remember watching a little bit of Beyblade and a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh. But that's where I really stopped. Like, I guess I was veering away from just hardcore TV watching. And more spending more of my time out with friends. And then I hit high school right after that point in 2000, end of 2002.
Yeah.
And from there on, I have no recollection of YTV. Not that I didn't like it anymore. I thought it was lame. It was just a natural, like, I've moved on to other things now.
Yeah, because some people have told me, they're like, "Oh, it's not the same as it used to be," and I'm just like, I don't know, man. My time was my time. It was authentic. It came to me without being forced in my face. I loved it, and I think YTV took a big hit when Montreal finally got Fox Kids, because half the city had Fox Kids for a while, and then all of a sudden it became available to everybody else, and we were at the mercy of YTV to show us Power Ranger episodes, in which they kind of canceled it at one point, and eventually, and Fox Kids kept playing it. And I remember on the Scrambly station, no, it wasn't porn, everybody. I was watching Scott Power Rangers on the Scrambly station, and it unveils that Tommy is the White Ranger, but I didn't know it was a White Ranger. To me, it was the Brown and Blue Ranger. You know, so they're like, "Oh, look," and I'm like, "Okay." And then, like, you know, kept watching it. It's just like, "I'm the White Ranger." I'm like, "White Ranger? Oh, if you say so."
That's interesting that you say that, because I was one of those kids who watched both YTV and Fox Kids at the same time. I was just if one series was on that I didn't like, I would switch over. I loved Fox Kids, specifically because of Power Rangers. One of the first memories I have was being 3 years old, and at the time, Videotron had Channel 2 and like one little like pay-per-view thing in the center, and all the channels that you can watch around it.
Okay.
And I remember pointing to that Power Rangers. I didn't even know what it was. I just pointed to that. My grandfather put it on, and from then on out, I was a pure Power Rangers fan. Fox Kids was like a big thing for me growing up because of Power Rangers, and it had a bunch of other cool shows too. X-Men was another one of them. And I guess I didn't really notice that there was a battle. There was just certain shows I didn't like on YTV that I ended up watching Fox Kids, and then when they had shows I didn't like, I would go back. But for me, that whole thing of when did I start seeing it fail, at least for me, was around the early 2000s, where I don't know if it was a quality or because like I can watch Are You Afraid of the Dark episode today and still be floored by the writing. Like,
me too. Still do.
Amazing songwriting, actual TV writing.
Songwriting too. It's a good song.
It's great. Yeah. But like Goosebumps, I'll watch and I'm like, this is a little cheesy. Like
I know. I know. I was saying that to Tim, like the artwork on the books was always my favorite thing about Goosebumps. Even when you read the books, you're like, yeah, they're cool. They're short. They're cool. But that cover though.
That cover's amazing.
And then when you see the renditions of what the visuals you got off the book was in a kind of semi-low budget show shot in Canada, it's like, oh, that's what the Haunted Mask looks like. You know, I still loved it and all, but my imagination and reading those books, those stories looked and felt a lot different to me. And that's why I always thought, I'm like, I really wish there was a Goosebumps animated series where they could really take Tim's drawings and bring those specifically to life. Because that would be really good, because they did the best they could. But Are You Afraid of the Dark was kind of developed. Are You Afraid of the Dark was kind of developed where this is how much we got, what can we do, and let's make it great. But Goosebumps was developed of, okay, so to pull this off properly, according to these books, we're going to need 7 times the budget we have. So we're going to have to slum it a little bit and take a 2.5 hour story and cram it into 20. All things considered, Goosebumps did pretty well, but I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, I didn't like. I mean, it's cheesy. And I watch it. I'm like, I can get through. If I had kids and they were watching it, I'd never seen it before, I'd be cool with it. Yeah. But because I wanted to see if I could remain objective of if the quality of the shows actually did tank after that, or is it just because I don't understand them anymore? And I haven't gone back and actually done that, but I know that I can watch Power Rangers, and it's still one of my favorite series ever. The first few seasons, and I have several times. And man, this is hard to sit through sometimes, but I still love it. I know that it's bad. I still enjoy it.
Power Rangers the best, dude. You can play, and everyone out there, whenever you're at a party, God knows when we can have those again. Yeah. But the next time you can, put Power Rangers on a TV. I guarantee it'll synchronize to any music you play. Power Rangers, there's something about that series where everything's very musical, and even the acting is kind of big and bouncy. So we were playing Aqua, we were playing Biggie Smalls, we were playing everything, just daring Power Rangers to not sync up with the music as if it was there purposely. And it's incredible how it does. So
I gotta try that. I absolutely have to try that.
It's a good time. Oh, and by the way, Phil's bringing up Sweet Valley High. Ron Wasserman, who is the composer of the Power Rangers show, and all those guitars that we all air guitared as a kid. Well, guess what, folks? It was all on keyboard, and what you heard in that theme song was the demo. It was the first attempt. And Eddie Van Halen met him once, and he's just like, "I'm trying to get it. What do you do on the guitar?" He's like, "Oh, it's actually on keyboard." So he's like I've
been playing guitar since I was 13 years old, and I remember when I first learned how to tapping was a thing, right? Every time you pick up a guitar, it's like learn how to tap. It's the easiest thing ever. But I went home and I'm like, I think Power Rangers has tapping in it to my dad. And he said, yep, it does. And I immediately tried to learn it. And it was way too far of a stretch at that point. I could do it now, but it's still fun when you do that. And people are like, oh my God, it's Power Rangers.
People are bringing up Breaker High, and Breaker High is a cool show. But at the same time, I was just kind of like, I got to this age where when I'm 15 or 16, I'm like, none of these teens are drinking. Who does this? But but that belonged to the next generation of kids, is what I'm saying. In fact, my darling Melissa, I've been with her like 10 years, and she was one of the stars of Radioactive. She was.
I know. Morgan.
She played. Is that what her last name was? Anyway, she played Morgan, and I never saw her show back in the day because I had spiky blonde hair. And my friend Giancarlo on that show, he had spiky blonde hair and was portraying himself as quite a doofus. And as someone who was spiky blonde hair, I said, hey, wait a second. We're not doofuses. We take enough crap from our teachers. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good day. And I just never really watched the show. Then years later, after meeting her, I'm like, I'm going to give this a try. And then I'm like looking at it, I'm just like, this is a great show to kind of show kids in elementary school that high school is not the after school special scared straight program that all these other shows were doing. We're supposed to like go to high school, get pregnant, go to high school, get STDs. This was just a good time of some friends goofing. Yeah,
it wasn't Degrassi, but no, I watched a lot of Radioactive. I absolutely adored Radioactive. I still remember some of the names, some of the jokes inside jokes I have with my sister about it.
Yeah,
you know what? I had like a super huge crush on your current lady when I was a kid. It's like Morgan was awesome.
Hey, honey. Let's make this weird.
This thing is so weird.
All right. So, okay. Getting some more questions here. Oh, thank you very much, Patrick. Such a nice thing to say. So, okay. Thoughts on Ready or Not? Ross was in there too. Dude.
Yes.
Ready or Not is amazing. And I rewatched it all, and that show had balls. There was no clean-cut, good, happy ending. If Amanda did something dumb, she got her comeuppance. Or even if she didn't, and she put her trust into someone who cheated, by the end of the episode, they're not like, we knew you didn't cheat, Amanda. Here's your A. Wouldn't happen in Ready or Not. Ready or Not was totally so realistic, and the issues they would touch, considering the show is like 30 years old, so ahead of its time. And I think it takes Canadian teen drama to actually have the balls to go there. Along with Degrassi, when Saved by the Bell, the worst thing to happen is one of them takes some diet pills. Ready or Not would have someone pass out or have someone almost die, and it's really Ready or Not is something very special.
I'm with you on that. I love Ready or Not, and I totally agree. Canadian television seemed to have they were a lot less afraid of corrupting children than like American counterparts. And I have no idea why, because those were real scenarios that were going to happen to kids or were happening to kids at that time. Yeah. And looking back on it, it's like when parents freaked out about Eminem. Like I was one of those 9-year-old kids who was, bumping Slim Shady and everything. And I turned out just fine. I mean, well, some people will say I wouldn't, but I'm totally fine.
That Eminem told me to get these tattoos, mother.
Exactly.
No, exactly. And something about Ready or Not that really stuck out to me. I remember this episode, and it's kind of like, I don't know, I guess it's culturally relevant right now, but it's there's this episode where Busy's watching her dad and her brothers watch a basketball game. And her dad is like, "Oh my God, these people are so good at basketball." Oh, and she's like, "What do you mean these people?" And what do you mean they're all good at basketball? And I'm thinking, and that really stuck with me. Generalizing and stuff like that. And I'm like, as a 9-year-old, that's a really profound thing to get into your mind going into the rest of your life and realizing, I'm like, wow, Ready or Not, Degrassi, they taught me a lot of crap before, they taught me how to walk before I could run. And I'm kind of glad of the human being I grew up based on watching this in dramatized teen Canadian television. Sometimes, yeah. Even the episode I remember, like on a Degrassi thing, there's this episode I'll never forget where it turns out that the big bully that's always beating up Joey Jeremiah contracts the HIV virus from a girl he had only been with once, and him and Joey get in a fist fight, and his nose is bleeding. Wait, no, stop. I just remember, like, dude, being 11 or 10 years old and stuff like that before your teens and stuff like that, it's actually kind of nice to learn the hard way through these messages as opposed to learning the hard way by being those messages.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I specifically on like a Ready or Not episode, I also took away something from that in a different episode where Busy has a friend who's also a guitar player, and they're just playing guitar with each other. And the kid's dad is also a guitar player, I imagine, because looking and trying to fix it. And he was just like a crazy alcoholic, and he beat the shit out of the kid. And I still remember how like, the beat turning in the show where Busy realizes that like this guy gets his ass kicked. And like I never grew up like that. Very fortunate to not have had that type of upbringing. But you can definitely spot people who like I definitely took away a lot from the shows, like I guess emotional intelligence by being able to spot
emotional intelligence.
Being able to spot friends who are in those situations and try to help them out through it, even as much as I could. It's learning through TV. And I guess you could say that TV does influence you because of this, but it was in this instance more a better understanding of the world around you and the people that you surround yourself with.
Okay. Oh yeah. But well, Phil, it's a great point. I'm not in this present climate. I'm not going to say the word out loud because I'm going to get in trouble. But it's really true. It's there's this episode where it's heavy. Whatever. Just watch it, everybody. It's great. Where basically some person calls Busy something racist, and she's like, "That's racist." Like, it can't be racist, and I'm this, and they're like, "No, it is racist," and I'm like, "Huh." Also, emotionally, I think the whole world should watch Ready or Not right now. To be honest, I think we'll come into 2022 all better people if we absorb the emotional intelligence, if you will, from 30-year-old Canadian teen drama.
That's something that didn't change. I agree. It didn't change in the last 30 years, which is mind blowing.
Relmer saying 90s shows were all about morals and life lessons. You know what? They were, but they didn't bang it in your face either. They made you love these characters, and then the characters would go through something and you would go with them based on your previous love of the character. And I find like I really like shows that can balance that goofiness while at the same time show you that, but now that you're paying attention. So
there was a whole era for us, at least the way that I look at it is we were taught to critically think before we even were thought to just think. The whole house rhinos, that was a way to question what you're seeing, question what everything that you're watching. And even those episodes of television were about morals, but a lot of it did, from what I remember, like it wasn't about good or bad. There was some of that, but it was also like the gray areas between like good and evil. Which you take away with that, a lot of that when you grow up with it.
Chastity was just bringing up Neon Rider. Neon Rider, man, that was like one of those. Oh, Phil, Ghost Rider. Do not get me started on my love of Ghost Rider. But
I loved it too, man. Oh my god.
Oh man, Neon Rider was something I never caught, but was always on. Did you watch Neon Rider?
I remember hearing the name, but I don't. I may have watched it. I just have no recollection. Yeah. The other one was Beetleborgs. I remember watching it, but no recollection.
That's when I grew out of it. I don't like. I'm saying this publicly right now. I don't like Beetleborgs. I like Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. I like Power Rangers. I like VR Troopers. But Beetleborgs was about little kids when I was no longer a little kid. So if you like, everyone out there, if you like Beetleborgs, just remember, by the time that came out, it was none of my business anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't like Beetleborgs. But in hindsight, I look at it, I'm like, wow, what a wacky idea. They have a haunted house set. They're Power Rangers for some reasons. There's ghosts and wishes.
Yeah, it was weird.
What cokehead wrote this? You know, like, but you know, it worked, and some people really loved it. So it's all.
I think it was only like one season. I there's shows that I know I watched because my dad says yes. I watched that with you. Superhuman Samurai was another one that I adored. My dad liked it a lot too because it was based off of stuff that he watched as a kid.
Yeah. It's kind of like an Ultraman show. I mean, he looked just like Ultraman, so I'm sure they have. Yeah,
that's exactly it. My dad watched it as a kid, and I had kids, and I was into it because like I really like anything that you morph. If it's morphing or changing, I'm a huge fan. Dragon Ball, he changes into a Super Saiyan. It's just his hair, but it's still cool. So any show like that, I was really into.
Okay, so I'm just remembering something funny about just Power Rangers in general. The first Power Rangers series kind of came about because they made a Japanese Spider-Man series. And then the Japanese Spider-Man series, they had to figure out a way to sell toys. So they came out with a giant spider robot and a giant spider car, but he was a superhero fighting bad guys. And then after that, the producers are like, well, that Japanese Spider-Man was cool, but it would be cool if we didn't have to pay any royalty rights to the States or something like that. Why don't we make our own superheroes that had their own giant robots and their own stuff? So up until that point, Ultraman was a thing before that, but that was the first time where humans would turn into something to jump into giant robots that would turn into other things. And it starts with Japanese Spider-Man. I thought that was so fascinating.
It's weird, man. How they came for it, and the Super Sentai series going back to like the 70s and stuff it's
rad. Crazy. I love Super Sentai. The first one with the monsters are so goofy. It's great. Also plays well with Biggie Smalls.
It does, and we just got lucky that the Super Sentai series got like pretty good around the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers era. So that when it came here, it was like.
Do you see what the original is based on? You can see it on Tubi TV. It's like these people, they're like thousands of years old or millions of years old, and they're frozen in ice. And what their Zordon looks like before fighting Rita as a human, before he gets like,
Yep.
Oh my God. It's so interesting. Even the theme song, you see the Yellow Ranger scaling up who is a dude in that series, scaling up a lamppost like a spider. And you're like, I've never seen that shot before. They use the same shots in Power Rangers 500 times. I would know that shot, and there it is. Yeah,
and they changed. They changed after the second season because they ran out of episodes. But they're still wearing the Dino helmets, but they're using the Zords from the new seasons. So the Samurai Zords. So I know that entire history. I actually got to meet them, and I thought they were really fucking cool in person. But that was a show I adored. Yeah,
the last time they were at Montreal Comic Con, they're just having a blast. Like Zach, Jason, and Billy. Billy was that was a few years ago too, and they're just there and they're owning it. It was a really good time.
So cool! It was great to be in that Q&A with them, man.
Oh yeah, the Q&A was crazy, and at the end they say it's morphin' time, and that was great. Who was your favorite Power Ranger?
Oh man, to this day and to the day I die, Jason.
Yeah.
Jason will always be my favorite.
Yeah, tell me why is your favorite Ranger?
Oh man, because he was the leader of the team, man. He had an awesome red suit. He knew what to do, and even when he didn't, he still had like it's going to be okay. They looked for him for leadership, and he knew what he was doing, man. And that stuck with me as a 3-4-year-old to this day. My name's Justyn, but most people when I was a kid just always defaulted to Jason. So I was like, I don't have any problem with that.
Okay.
And then Tommy I like too, but I really only care for Tommy when he was the Green Ranger, because Jason was still the leader of the team.
Gotcha.
And then when he becomes the White Ranger and Jason leaves, he becomes.
Yeah.
I still like the character. I really do. I like him throughout all of it. But Jason was the first. Like, he was there. And Tommy struggled as a leader for a lot of the series to the point where they bring Jason back and he's bickering about it with him. So I thought that was Jason, my man.
Oh man, there is some dicey behind the scenes stories that I haven't heard firsthand, but Jason David Frank is not one to mince words. So if you want to hear what he has to say about other people, you just gotta Google it. But it's funny though, because I almost got once upon a time, I was like, oh, Power Rangers mean so much to me. I want to get a Jason and Tommy tattoo. But I'm like, but then I kind of reached this age where I'm just like, you know what, man? I have a Zelda tattoo. I got my cat. I got my stupid fake nickname. I got all those, and I'm like, the next tattoo I get's got to be someone else, because I am a part-time actor. Like, every now and then I might get a role. And there was this one time I got cast as a junkie in this show called the oh god, what the hell is it called? See, I've had like 5 jobs and I can't remember what they all are as a defense mechanism. The Transplant. There's on The Transplant, I played like this junkie patient in an episode, and I had girls that I went to elementary school with recognize me for the 5.5 seconds I was on screen, covered in blood and bruises, and they recognized me from that. But my own mom is like, you weren't on it. And I'm like, yeah, I was. I'm there. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that they looked at my tattoo, and I'm supposed to pull out an IV from my arm, and my questionable blood would spray into one of the doctor's eyes, making it ambiguous to see if they would need to get tests and see if they're okay. So they look at my arm and they're like, okay, maybe we'll just use your arm. But the makeup artist, very talented, she's like, no, let's try it covered. So they spent an hour covering it with all this makeup and all this other stuff. And I'm just have my head in my hands because I'm just so embarrassed because I think I'm holding up production and stuff like that. And I'm just like, man, the next tattoo I get might be in my inner thigh or something like that, just to prevent the bull that happens with.
My next tattoo is like the sleeves that I had always planned was like Power Rangers, and trying to do that. I think I might scale it back for as big as I wanted to do it, and incorporates more black and white. But I have to have a Jason in there somewhere. It like really did define like what leadership meant to me, and I manage people as like a job now. I do take away that type of like gotta go into battle.
Amazing.
We have Brandon. Brandon was commenting earlier. He used to I used to be his boss, and I always used to say there's like a wolf pack, I used to go. I think of it as like going into battle, and I used to call it for the Power Rangers. That's how much like that character meant to me.
Oh, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I always just remember like Jason's just such a distinct voice. It kind of his voice reminds me a little bit about Raphael in the first Ninja Turtles movie. Yeah. The 3 Ninja Turtles movies. I think he's the only consistent voice actor in it. It's just really funny with everything he says. He's like, all right, guys, it's Muffin time. And I'm
you do it very well.
Thank you. But it must be so weird. Like, and I would love to, if I ever talk to him about it, is that, dude, like when you're recording these things for the first time and you're the first Power Ranger series and there's never that series you can look at as a reference because it's all in Japanese, and it must feel so silly to be in that sound booth just screaming pterodactyl for hours at a time. Yeah,
I'm pretty certain they went to that Q&A in Montreal, and they were talking about doing the lines and how most of the lines they had to fit to the scenes that were already recorded, so they would say it faster or slower. And they said it was ridiculous trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and when they wear when they would wear the helmets for the scenes, they would have to wear them in and have new footage of. Apparently, it would like completely crush your face. But it's funny. I was not a very observant child. Like, I would be a really bad detective because only in the last few years did I realize how much skinnier the stunt people were comparison to the beefcake that was Jason.
I always knew.
Tommy.
I always knew because the American version had the clips on the helmet. And a really thick, like almost like a.
You should be a detective. You should write a crime scene, man.
I remember being in high school, and it was finally at the point where, like, okay, it's cool to talk about Power Rangers again. And so these guys were. I was in class with one guy, and he was a big fan too. And I said, it's half American. It's a Japanese show, and they film new scenes for the American audience. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, you can easily tell. Just look for the clips on the helmet. If it's clips, it's American, because the Japanese ones, it's seamless. And he was freaking out. He had no idea. He just thought it was an American-made show. Like, no, man, go look at it. It's clearly a dude who's the Yellow Ranger.
Yeah. It's it's nuts, but they made it work, and they made it work well. And once again, big shout out to Ron Wasserman, because before I knew what metal was, before I knew what Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and all these other bands were, I was playing what I thought was air guitar to music long before. So when eventually I did hear that kind of stampeding power metal, I was already into it. You know, it was built into me, those rhythms, that energy. I was just drawn to it. And it took a little while for me to realize, oh yeah, because it reminds me of Power Rangers. It took till one of those parties where it was playing and I looked at the TV. I'm like, good God, is this the soundtrack of the show?
I'm convinced that Power Rangers had a big reason why metal music had like a resurgence in the last in the 2000s, last decade is still in my head, right?
At least in the late 90s, because all the 80s bands really were taking a bath in the mid 90s.
Yeah. All you had was Pantera. So
then when we grew up and we started to buy our own CDs and stuff like that, all of a sudden Bruce Dickinson happened to come back in Iron Maiden just at that right time, and I'm just like,
oh man, I'm a few years younger, right? So I remember being in high school, and I started playing guitar, but away from Power Rangers. But if it sounded like Power Rangers, I was going to think it was cool. And same thing with my friends. They started picking up guitar or bass or drums, and if they would continue listening to metal or hard rock. Yeah. Probably mostly because it would say, well, it sounded like Power Rangers, and I liked that, and it kept going because it's the Metallica does the same thing. So I'm convinced we had a resurgence in metal because of Power Rangers.
Guys, play Creeping Death, by the way, to any episode of Power Rangers, and it totally works, 100%. Someone's asking, were we into the Gundam series on YTV?
I remember when it first played on YTV because they replaced Dragon Ball with it for one episode.
Okay.
And they had to address the hate mail that they got for it because they're like, you can't replace Dragon Ball. So I remember watching it, but I wasn't as into it as I was some of the other anime shows.
Yeah. There was this Dragon Ball movie that came out like 13 years ago, I'd say. Like a long time ago, this Dragon Ball movie where they kind of missed the point. Like Goku's this eternal optimist who just isn't scared of anything and is always laughing at everything. And they turn him into essentially an emo kid with superpowers. And it's
the live action movie.
Yeah.
Fuck Dragon Ball Evolution. Fuck that.
I know, but I'm just kind of like, well, why did it fail? And I'm like, it kind of reminds me of a comic book movie before the Dark Knight and Iron Man. Like that summer, they kind of said, okay, now this is comic book movies. We're going to follow source material. All those other, all that other kind of stuff we were messing around with your Catwomans and Elektras and Steel and what's other? Oh, and your X-Men 3s and your all that other stuff. No, that stops here. And that's what Dragon Ball Evolution reminds me of. It reminds me of kind of like a poorly produced, crappy superhero adaptation from 1994 or something, where they just it's a name only, and yeah.
I absolutely feel you. I feel like the problem with that movie, because I had to see it. It was Dragon Ball, and to be a part of the hate for it. But the problem was that they tried to make it too realistic, and that's like where bringing realism is what ruins it. Because the whole thing about Dragon Ball is nobody can shoot fireballs out of our arms, and we can't go fucking Super Saiyan and our hair turn blonde whenever we want to. And they missed the mark on the fact that like Goku was the optimist. He just wanted to train and get better. And this kid was, I'm the new kid in town and I'm being bullied and I'm going to take revenge and stop Piccolo doing something.
You know what? You know what's crazy, dude, is and let's just go on a real big Dragon Ball kick. Like, why not? I first saw Dragon Ball when I was on vacation, I think in Virginia Beach or something like that, and it was on TV. And I was just like, oh, that's rad. And we were there for like, a few days. No, a few weeks actually. So I think it's like 11 episodes in before he kind of meets Master. He changes into the big gorilla thing in the moonlight. Yeah. And the first wish is done. And then he meets Master Roshi. And I remember like seeing the episode of it and then seeing nothing else after. He goes to the Master Roshi's island for some training, and then I never saw another Dragon Ball episode until Dragon Ball Z. Only years later did I know there was 5 extra seasons of that original series, and I think YTV just couldn't show it because of all the violence and stuff.
I have a similar kind of experience. I remember watching Dragon Ball. I was like 3 or 4 years old. I really do. It was like early in the morning, maybe like 4 or 5 in the morning. And my dad would put it on because it kept me calm, I guess. I've never been a very good sleeper. But then I do recall it coming back as Dragon Ball Z, and he has his kid, Gohan, and everything. And I just fell in love like right away. And the natural progression from them just being like soft characters, and they don't know he's a Saiyan. They just think he's a weird guy with a tail. And suddenly he's these sharp characters with all this power, and the storyline was just amazing. So I loved it.
Yeah, me too. And seeing Goku just kind of die in the first few episodes of Dragon Ball Z, and then just and it's in the Dragon Ball manga. Everybody, just the Saiyans coming and how scared they all were, and how his brother, I think his name's Raditz, said he's like, yeah, you it took 2 of you to beat me, but my friends are coming, and they're more powerful than I am. And then everyone's preparing for a year for that big final battle, and that's my favorite part of the entire series. I gotta say that, and when Gohan goes to high school, I thought it was really funny. I thought it was really funny that the daughter of Hercule, who thinks he's hot shit and she's hot shit, and having no idea what a goofball her dad is, how useless he is, taking credit for saving the world all these years later. Meanwhile, Goku couldn't care less if the whole world knew what a great martial artist he was. He was like a hick to these hit city people. But meanwhile, he saved the world 8 times. No one knows, but he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He just wants to be strong. I won. Cool.
It's hard to pick out a favorite moment there, but like I have two. The moment that Goku first goes Super Saiyan, because I was not expecting that at all. They kept talking about it, but the visualization of him and his whole expression changes from like happy eyes to sharp lines and I'm gonna get you, and he gets very arrogant with it. It was amazing. And then the second one is when Gohan, goes Super Saiyan 2. And he gets that same level of confidence where he's like, now I'm going to really take you, I'm going to really hurt you. And the father-son Kamehameha thing, those are 2 moments that really stand out for me from that series. But like, it's hard to pick. Like, I still play Dragon Ball FighterZ. Shout out to anyone who wants to come fight me. Let's do this.
Ian James Corlett was the original adult voice of Goku. He was also the producer of the animes when they first came to British Columbia, and him and someone else were the producers, and he was a voice actor in it. But he was the first adult Goku voice actor before eventually the dubbing went to America. And Sean Shamel does a great job. But my Goku is Ian James Corlett, and you can hear his voice in Mega Man. I mean, he's Cheetor from Beast Wars. He has this voice that sounds eternally young yet heroic. And when I hear that Goku and I hear his version of Goku, it's like, hey Vegeta, how's it going? Or it's just like, don't worry, I got this. Wow, you're strong. And it just, I don't know, the way his vocal inflections, I just hear young but tough. I don't know what it is. When I hear his voice, it's something very magical, and it's interesting to hear him as Cheetor in Beast Wars 2, because Cheetor is always kind of unsure of himself. Before he becomes the guy in Beast Machines, of course. But
Who
is your favorite Dragon Ball character?
Oh, it's got to be. I mean, aside from Goku and Vegeta, because like, yeah, I feel like that they're above that. Like, it's Gohan, but Gohan.
Me too. I love Gohan. Because I love. Oh God, I was so pissed when they made Dragon Ball GT and just all my favorite fighters stopped fighting. I was just like,
yeah,
fuck you guys.
Or even Dragon Ball Super, like where I understand the whole storyline that he's a father now and he doesn't want to be his father. I get it, but it's like, my God, dude, you were so cool.
Yeah, I know. It's when him and Goku go in the place that in like a few days it actually could be a year, and they come out and they're both Super Saiyan. They're all chilled out with just the blonde hair. I'm like, oh yeah, Gohan's awesome.
Oh yeah, he was just flexing without even flexing. Just walks out and he's like, "Yo, I'm ready for this."
Doesn't he beat Cell? Isn't he? Yeah, he was the actual he's the one that actually saved the world, I think.
He is the one.
And the thing about Gohan too, what I loved about him so much is that you see like literally him as a baby grow into this person that we're all seeing. And the writers of Dragon Ball, it was the same thing. They're like, yeah, he's crying over everything. You just wait. 3 or 4 seasons of him fighting the same dude, he's going to get real good.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, he was a scared 11-year-old boy, but he pulled it off, man.
Yeah. Oh man. Romer's also bringing up the Kid Gohan was favorite. See, future Gohan, my favorite. All these people, all this love for Gohan. Which I just wanted to bring up before that Vegeta is kind of like the Stone Cold Steve Austin of the Dragon Ball universe, where he's supposed to be this hated, reviled like jerk, but he just became a babyface, man. Everybody loves Vegeta, and he's supposed to be
He's got a story arc that's a brilliant. Like, he's a villain, and then over time he learns to love and like love passionately his family, and that like you can't beat that.
Yeah, and Trunks was badass too, man. That was really
Trunks
cool.
Is shit. I love Trunks.
Just seeing someone come from the future and make mincemeat out of Cell in another timeline, and you're just like, what?
Yeah, just comes in out of nowhere and like slices up Frieza while we just finished watching Goku go through hell to destroy him. That was brilliant. I don't like Super that much just because they change a lot of like that whole timeline, and it's like Goten and Trunks are like still kids, like 5 years after the fact.
Dude, it's none of our business. Like that's the best part of the thing. It's just like we had our time, man. But some 10-year-old kid is watching Dragon Ball Super, and that's the first Dragon Ball they've ever seen, and it is blowing their mind. And that's the best thing about any content is that you could always go back and see the one you prefer and stuff like that. Totally. Did you see that Power Ranger movie a few years ago?
Yeah, totally did.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. I just kind of wish there was a middle battle, like where if they got in their suits, messed up, had to give the suits up, and then re-deserve them at the end. I would have preferred that. But I gotta say, I gotta say, seeing Jason save his dad like a first responder, and his dad has no idea it's him, that got me emotional, dude. I really like that one.
I was really worried about because I've watched basically every series of Power Rangers there's been. There was a few years where it was off and they didn't have anything, so I went into that knowing that here's the things that I want to see from Power Rangers when they announced it. I don't want them to change the stuff that makes it Power Rangers. I want them to change the stuff that makes Power Rangers pretty shitty. So that's like writing, storytelling, dialogue, all of that stuff. Some of that stuff, right? I didn't want them to change the suits from spandex. Like, just keep. Obviously, it was fine. Whatever. It was like Iron Man, but the stuff that I was really intent on hoping that they did really well was like the team dynamic, which I think after Lightspeed Rescue, the team dynamic kind of went to hell for Power Rangers. Because I like Dino Thunder, but the team dynamic was and in that movie the team dynamic was really, really awesome. But they made Zordon a pain in the ass and like a really shitty mentor, which is not like what I expected from like a mentor who's like in a different being. The stuff that I agree, I think that they should have became Power Rangers first, not know how to use the break the 3 rules, lose the powers, and then you have to learn to get them again instead of transforming at the end and then having Zordon let them die before letting them know like, hey, you can transform into a Megazord. Like, to me that was like loss of sense. But otherwise team dynamic was great, and I was looking forward to seeing where that could go with the 6th Ranger, but I don't know if they're making it or not.
I don't think so. And fun fact, the actor who played Zack, Ludi Lin, is going to be portraying Liu Kang this weekend in the new Mortal Kombat movie. Well, since Keaton, they've had a healthy dose of rubber muscles.
Oh, definitely some rubber. I'd even be cool with leather. You know, if it went like the Daredevil look, you know, from the Ben Affleck Daredevil, I'd be cool with that. So long as
it's a great looking costume. It's a great looking costume. Ben looks better in the Daredevil costume than he does in the Batman costume. It's kind of funny.
Way better. Yeah. If they had something like that, I think I would have liked it a little bit more. And it's just aesthetic, really. But I don't know. I think a part of those shows' appeal was the aesthetic of the way that they looked.
Yeah. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm talking with Justyn here, and Justyn is a man of many tattoos. He's got a full YTV sleeve on his arm, and we've been discussing the shows in great detail. But you know what? We haven't talked enough about Reboot. Now, Reboot is the kids out there. I'm sure I don't have to remind you, but Reboot is the first ever full series to be in CGI. It took many years to develop. The creators got the idea after working on the video for Dire Straits, Money for Nothing, in which there was a few scenes, and then they decided maybe we can make a whole show about this. And there was many changes. And Michael, who played Bob, has been a guest on this show, and you can hear in great detail the history of Reboot and his involvement with it. And anyone who hasn't watched this series, this live stuff, this has been for like a year. This is COVID desperation. This is we have long form, edited, full with clipped interviews on YouTube and Facebook with the stars of these shows. So please check them out. But the thing about Reboot 2, we were discussing before about how Matrix became Matrix, but that show ends on a cliffhanger that is so frustrating. I can't believe that in the newer Reboot series they didn't acknowledge that in at least in one episode, just to be like, what happened when Megabyte took over mainframe? Like, we're talking 1/2 hour of explanation. Just
so many things that could have happened.
Soul. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't watch the reboot because I saw the trailer and I'm like, I don't want to have.
It's none of our business.
Yeah, it's none of our business. I don't subscribe to it'll ruin my childhood. I'm looking for something that will no longer be there.
Gotcha.
So I didn't watch it. But the original reboot, I absolutely adored it. And the fact that like it was Canadian produced. I remember I was in LA once with my buddy Dave. I think you know David Blaze.
Yeah, David Blaze. I love David Blaze.
Yeah. I was in LA with him. He's a
dude. I was with him when he joined Psychotic 4. I was like their roadie cinematographer guy. So
really?
Yeah. Me and him, we were watching Scorpions from the side of the stage when they opened for them, and I was there for the highs and the lows of his time in Psychotic 4. Man, David Blaze is a wonderful person. The last time I saw him, I believe it was at a Ghost concert, and instead of watching the show, we were geeking out about all the new freaking shows.
Dave went to a Ghost concert? Shit.
Dave Blaze is one of my favorite human beings, man. I love Dave.
He's one of my best friends. I absolutely adore him. He's a sweetheart. And
oh my God.
Paul too.
Yeah.
Paul's training me in MMA.
Met Paul first, actually, when Paul was Tainted Youth's manager, I want to call it. I don't know. He recorded them. Paul was a jack of all trades for this band Tainted Youth, and my band Judgmental would play with their band all the time when we were a kid. Oh my God, we're going back 22 years, dude.
Yeah,
like 21 years.
Yeah, Paul. I played in Paul's band I played bass for a couple of shows.
Oh, awesome, man. Yeah,
I'm a guitar player. So yeah, they're really good friends of mine. I was in LA with them, and I was walking down somewhere in Anaheim. It was Anaheim. Yeah. Sorry, we went to LA a couple of days, but we were in Anaheim, and it was a music convention called NAMM. And me and Dave were just walking, drinking whatever we had on us. And this guy stopped us, and he's like, because I had a Reboot pin, and he's like, "Oh my God, dude, is that a Reboot pin?" And me and Dave looked at each other, like, "You know Reboot?" And the guy was looking at us like we were crazy. He's like, "Yeah, I know Reboot." And I couldn't. Usually that dynamic has changed, where it's like Americans would say, "You guys get this," like we're a third world country. And that time I was so shocked, and I had more comments about the pin than anything else that weekend.
Oh man, I got one of those pins at Montreal Comic Con because the co-creator Gavin Blair was there, and he was selling these pins and stuff. And I got the virus one because I was like,
"Oh shit, nice."
Oh, at least yes, Tainted Youth with Tony, yeah.
Tony, so I appreciated a lot of Reboot. When I was just the fact that it was Canadian and it was like honestly, it still stands up to today's CGI. They did it so well. That's why even watching the trailer for the new reboot, I was like, how can the 90s one look almost more higher quality than this?
Yeah.
And I can't recall a lot of the later seasons, and I've always meant to go back and kind of watch them. But yeah, I remember there being a cliffhanger, and I don't know why I don't know the exact story of what happened with it on, like, it just lost funding, I guess.
I believe Michael actually tells me in that episode. It's been a long year, and I got to rewatch my own show to find out.
Yeah, I got to watch
it too. Okay, let's see what this one is. I often think Wooly from Super Best Friends and Castle Super Beast when I think of the reboot logo, especially in pin form.
Wooly used to be my boss.
Nice. Okay. Oh, Joey said something really funny before. The reboot never existed. Trust me. You know, it just kind of reminded me of what they were trying to do with Digimon. Sorry, no, Digimon. Jumanji. What they were trying to do with Jumanji, where they're like, we're regular people. Hey, we're in the game. In fact, I looked at the concept for the new reboot, the Guardian Code, and I'm like, why are they doing Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad without calling it Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad? They're turning into computer game stuff and fighting viruses. That's what Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad is.
Yeah, I thought there was a lost opportunity there. If we were in the naming, like we're in the 90s, a megabyte was a huge ass fucking file. It was, I mean, it's no joke. We were on kilobyte sizes back then.
Yeah,
and he's a megabyte virus, and I think they called him gigabyte now. But a gigabyte is the equivalent to a kilobyte in the 90s. Like you could have petabyte or yottabyte, something. There's a lost opportunity there.
Yeah, ultra byte. Who's your favorite virus? We had a few really good viruses on Reboot. Who's your favorite one?
Oh man, so I forget the names, but I'm thinking Damon.
Oh yeah, Damon. Oh dude, that's the whole last season.
Yeah,
Damon Rising. No, second to last season. Last season is my two Bobs, which is a few episodes combined.
My two Bobs, yeah, that one fucked me up for a little while.
Yeah. But which is cool though, because Ian James Corlett and Michael both voiced Bob, the original Bob, and the second Bob in the same episode to each other. So that's kind of a nice nod and a nice wink. With Damon Rising, I always liked Hexadecimal. I think she was kind of that. I think she was in the same camp of Harley Quinn, of just a very attractive psycho girl.
Yeah, when I think about it like that, Hexadecimal was like a really unique villain type of character, like straddles that line, and the brilliance of the face changing. You know what? Yeah, Hexadecimal's up there too. but at the same time, like, loved Bob, and kind of like had some really nice heroic moments. I've always kind of liked it. We were talking about Vegeta before, and in general, even Dinobot in Transformers Beast Wars. I always love it when, you know, villains and heroes actually kind of become buds, and people who you're supposed to hate actually kind of become more heroic than your heroes. Like, there's this episode of Beast Wars that emotionally like hits me, called the Heroes Code, in which there's some kind of cave people, I guess, or pre-cave people living on the planet, which we find out later was actually Earth all along. Kind of like it sounds a lot like Planet of the Apes, but in Beast Wars, basically, if these people die, the human race never exists, and Dinobot essentially dies fighting, protecting them, and stuff like that. And it's just like, and Dinobot starts off the first episode with challenging Megatron, who he's a bad guy and he wants to lead, and then he comes to the Maximals and he's causing all this kind of trouble. But eventually, he's the Vegeta of the series, man, and people love Dinobot, and he was like this badass, always kind of being a pain in the heroes' asses, but at the same time, he went down loved, and it's crazy, man. Yeah, like it's a classic redemption arc, or even Loki in the MCU, where he's
Loki,
villain, and we're all crying when he inevitably passes.
or Ken in Digimon, right?
Yeah. Oh my god,
yeah. He's the Pokemon Emperor in the first season, and then he becomes their bud. Yeah, I love that, man.
It's classic. Anime has a thing with that. Even like Majin Buu is a villain, then he's suddenly a friend of everyone.
Yeah. I wish it didn't take 3 seasons to take him down, but yeah.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, that's one thing about that original series, man. They love their filler. There was some filler.
Do you know why there was so much filler?
No, do you actually?
Yeah.
Okay, so, like, hit me.
Specifically the one that people talk about the most is like the Frieza saga, where it's the whole episode is just powering up. They had to do that to slow down the production of the episodes because the books weren't yet written.
Gotcha.
So they had to have a lot of filler, unfortunately.
Genius. Gotcha.
That's why you have the Kai episodes. But you know what? Honestly, if you go to YouTube and you put on the full Frieza fight, the whole thing where it cuts out all the talking in between, it's 4 hours. But if you watch all the way through, it feels like that fight, it should be that long.
Okay. Gotcha. Romer's telling me that episode was called Code of Hero, and it's true. And Scott McNeil is a legend, and I would love to meet him too. Scott McNeil not only voiced Dinobot, I believe he also voiced Silverbolt, which is funny, but he also voiced Rat Trap. Just goes to show what a dynamic range that man's voice has, and all the character he manages to portray is just insane. And Gary Chalk, Optimus Primal in that series, he's like my Optimus Prime. I love Peter Cullen. I love what he means to the fans and everything he's done. But like I said, Beast Wars was like my first Transformers series from my generation. Yeah. You know, it was made like 10 years after the fact of the other one, and he didn't die tragically in Transformers the movie. So, you know, I only saw Transformers the movie recently, and I finally understood why like millions of kids left the theater sobbing because they killed all their favorite characters in the first 10 minutes.
Oh, totally.
Oh, the 80s. Oh, the 80s. That wouldn't happen now.
Man. Heartstrings. It was the Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Oh, and that's true. And Scott McNeil, Nick, thank you very much, is also telling me that he was the voice of Piccolo.
Oh, shit, Nick. Nice to see you.
It's crazy. You know, it's crazy when we talk about that because Ian James Corlett, we're talking about him voicing the second Bob, but he also voiced first English Goku. He voiced Mega Man, but Scotty McNeil was always in those series too, usually fighting him. You know,
I know the name just from reading it on screen so often.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, yeah. Let's go to your tattoo pick one more time and just make sure we covered all these shows. We touched a little bit upon Are You Afraid of the Dark, but is there an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode that legit gave you nightmares back in the day?
Oh, no. I was one of those kids that didn't have nightmares like that.
I was one of those kids that didn't have feelings.
I would watch the horror movies and I'd love them. I remember people asking my parents, "You let him watch that stuff? Doesn't he have like nightmares?" Like, no, he absolutely adores those movies. And Halloween at night, like 9 p.m. on YTV, they had like Poltergeist on. I remember that specifically. Scary ones, no. Ones that like heartbreaking ones, heck yeah. There was a bunch of those Are You Afraid of the Dark ones that got me.
It's true. The one with Chameleon was a buzz. There's one. Brett Wilson, actually, who was a guest on the show once, he ran a Kickstarter in which he made a book called Scary Tales, an illustrated history of Are You Afraid of the Dark, and got all his money, printed the book. I was part of I pledged, and now You, Me, and YTV is listed in the credits as a thank you. And it's funny, it's the only time You and Me and YTV has ever really been written down anywhere that didn't involve me doing it. So, with the exception, by the way, my friend Michael, who runs a show called Talk to the Mic, who had me on the show and interviewed me right before COVID went bananas. And I believe it's his birthday today. So happy birthday, Michael. Thank you for having me on your show. I love talking without having to edit it. It's wonderful. It's great.
I see a comment here. Best Midnight Society storyteller.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal one. Oh my God. I can't recall their names right now, but Sam was a pretty good one. And Ross's little brother.
Tucker.
Yes, Tucker. Tucker was great.
Tucker told, I believe, the Headless Horseman one as his initiation story, I think. And that was a good one too.
And it's my favorite episode, but I can't remember who told the story of the Tale of Dream Girl. I think it might have been Sam, actually.
Okay. We could look it up, but let's let the audience tell. Let's let the audience tell us. I loved Dream Girl's really good. The Prom Queen one has Katie Griffin in it, and she was the voice of Sailor Mars, and she turns out to be the ghost. It's all connected, everybody. It's all connected. I remember just being so blown away that by the fact that actors had more than one job. Like back in the day, I'm like, oh my god, they did this, and this, and they'll tell you, well, yeah, damn it, I've auditioned every day. I would hope to be on that than that.
I was always excited to see them cross shows or being on more than one episode.
Yeah. Melissa did an episode of Student Bodies where she played Victor's love interest, this girl named Priscilla that was after his money. And
yeah, I remember that. Oh my god, yeah, I remember that.
And seeing her vicious side, it was a really good performance, and really like a lot of Student Bodies fans like that's and Radioactive fans. It's a lot of fun to see that kind of like crossover. But I believe it was made by two different series, but it had the Marvel universe existed and all this other stuff, they would have made big time ratings if they had like a Radioactive and Student Bodies crossover, of course.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally, my God, yeah, I would have definitely been like first in line to watch that.
I don't think Saved by the Bell and Hang Time ever kind of cross promoted themselves either. Like back in
I remember watching a little bit of it, but I don't have a really good recollection of it.
All these soft. It sounds weird to say soft teen shows, but it's kind of funny. It's like, not high stakes. It's a little bit of melodrama. Your homework doesn't get shenanigans. Like those type of shows. And those are great for 11, 12-year-olds to not scare the crap out of them about high school before they get in there.
Yeah, just happy-go-lucky type of things, I remember a bunch of those. But YTV had it was still it wasn't just shenanigans. It was something that always, I don't know, I took away more from it, I guess.
Daniel DeSanto, a.k.a. Tucker, was also Carlos in Magic School Bus, and Ray on Beyblade. He was also in Mean Girls. It's true. Daniel DeSanto is on the show in October, actually, with Ross Hall. We had a little mini Are You Afraid of the Dark reunion, so everybody out there, if you're ever bored, we have a large library of stuff. We've been doing the show on and off for about 6 years, and I've talked to some really rad people. But today I'm talking with Justyn, and Justyn, it's been great. Been great meeting each other. Essentially, this is the first time we ever met. There was no pre-interview. We said hi. Let's go. Let's start.
I hit you up, and that was it. And it's quite hilarious that we know a lot of the same people,
but don't know each other, dude. And it's a small world. How we must have been in the same room by accident, but just been unaware of each other.
Definitely at a Comic-Con for sure.
Yeah.
100%, and it's also weird that we know a lot of the same people and have an extreme appreciation of YTV to the point where you started a whole channel on it.
Yeah, we should have been meeting in basements years ago with the other with the other nostalgia support group, just being like, "All right, say it out loud, everybody." The 90s was 30 years ago. Okay, yeah.
I know. Don't remind me.
Yeah. Oh man, I have zero. I get messages sometimes about people who are just like, yeah, but isn't YTV suck now? I'm like, I don't know. I don't have cable.
Neither do I.
I do know that they are missing out on a potential gold mine to have a Canadian-based app that focuses on its own content, because a lot of this content is kind of generally being unused. And instead of being on a Tubi app, I would pay $6-7 a month to just have all the old school kind of YTV stuff on one channel. You know what I mean? The same way of Netflix.
I think if YTV was to just shift from a cable-based standpoint to their own type of network, I would 100% buy it. If I had kids, I would definitely want them watching all of that. Not because I watched it, but because there's some phenomenal storytelling in there, like I said earlier.
Like we're talking about Ready or Not. It's just like, hey, son, it would mean a lot to me if you didn't grow up to be a piece of garbage. And if you watch this show, I'm pretty sure it'll kind of help, make you self-realize some bad actions before you do them. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Someone's saying, Romer's saying, we need to make a crowd fund for YTV Retro in all caps. So it's actually screaming, but my voice is tired, so I'm not going to do that.
I would absolutely adore that.
Yeah. I totally would, but I brought up Brett Wilson before, and the fact that he made this book. Fans out there, stuff like that. Sometimes when you want something to happen, it's kind of up to you to make it happen. And I'm really proud that Brett got his stuff together and worked on the book for 3 years. It's out, it's here, it's beautiful, and it's not on sale for the public just yet. But when it does happen, follow Brett Wilson on Instagram, because he is a really talented dude and put a lot of work into this book. He does profiles on each and every campfire kid and their tales and their styles, and they go through he goes through each episode. He has a custom drawing of what happens at the end of the episode, gives it a rating, a synopsis. Like, really, it is truly a great history of Are You Afraid of the Dark? So everyone out there, it's great, man. So we've been talking a long time.
Yes, sir.
And I'm having a good time doing it. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. This has been a blast. Justyn, let's talk about your band before we go. You dreamed about being a rock star, and you kind of did it. So, tell me about Orchid.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. So Orchid is like my third or fourth band, but this is the one where I have probably the best music I've ever written with my singer, and we're just two. Yeah, we write pop songs, but with rock guitar. Since I played rock guitar, it's our next music, the music coming out this summer has a little bit of a reggaeton flair, and then the music after that is like, if you like The Weeknd or Linkin Park or apparently the Gorillaz, you're gonna like this. We have a few music videos out and songs on Spotify. We're called Orchid, but it's spelled with an A, Orchad. You can ask why, but I'm gonna respond that my singer's illiterate. And it basically, if you like shred guitar or good rock guitar on like melodies, like a lot of harmonies and melodies, you're gonna like this music. It's got good riffs, and it just gets you grooving. That's what I like to do. I guess at some point a rock star without the fame. I did all.
Are we all?
Tour. I did the touring and the buses and everything. But with right now,
buses. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was on the bus. Well, one of my favorite bands ever too. I lived a pretty good life.
Oh my God, dude! I went on tour. I did the States a bunch of times, but a band. I guess I'm still in. We just don't really do anything anymore. I was in this band, The Real Deal, and went to Japan and Australia. And my dad went to Japan 2 months later and told me about a very different Japan than I experienced, because when you're living in a van down by the river in Japan, he's telling me about the hotels, and I'm like, yeah, Dad, I think I was staying in the parking lot down the street from your hotel or something like that.
What?
Yeah,
I toured the States, and I have done the van life, but with oddly bigger bands than what I was in before. And I've been on the tour buses, and the tour bus is an experience I wish every band could have, because you get like this bunk of coffee to sleep in.
Never had it.
Some of my friends who have. I'm very fortunate to have had that. Some of my friends who have done awesome things, like Paul. Paul said he's never had a bus except for in Europe. It was really like the experience that I've always wanted. Like the Motley Crue movie, The Dirt. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Motley Crue. If you've seen the movie, I live. Me too.
How do we not know each other?
I don't know.
What is going on? Motley Crue is my favorite band for like 11 years, from 19 till. I still love them. Yeah.
I adore Motley Crue. They were like a major reason why I decided I'm going to quit college to go play fucking music. Okay. So big reasons. Avenged Sevenfold as well. But watch that movie, that point in time where MGK as Tommy Lee goes and says, like, you want to know what it's like being on tour? And then he starts that up. Everything about that, minus I don't do drugs. So everything about that except for the drugs is what the life I lived for a little while, and I adored it.
Wow.
But I also made absolutely no fucking money and was broke for a long time.
Well, it's all part of life, man. I didn't make money in Japan. I didn't make any money on tour. What I made was memories and fun, and I'm really glad I did it. I'm really glad I did it when I did it. But also, more importantly, I'm kind of glad that I'm not sleeping in a van now. Like, that's the most important part. Like, I have all these memories, but I'm not contorted sitting up in a Walmart parking lot drinking just enough whiskey to pass out based on discomfort.
I never wanted that. Like, I didn't get the fame out of it, but it doesn't matter really, because I still got like experiences that were awesome, and I still carry that to this day, playing music and having a name in music, at least around the city. Check out my band. Let me know if you like it. If you like YTV, you might like this too. Who knows?
You should write about YTV stuff. Actually, Actually, we should write about YTV stuff. That would be the only musical project in the world.
So down. I'm so down. But the only two guys who have such a love of YTV, they dedicate a portion of their lives to it.
Yeah. Get PJ Freshville to play a bunch of guitar on it.
Oh, I would be a dream of mine. The first guitar playing I think I really heard was Phil, my dad showing me it on YTV.com.
Oh my God! Why? You know what? Before we go, we just really got to give a special shout out to the wonderful PJs whose personalities would light us up before even the cartoon would play. They were just part of our lives, man. And I kind of really miss. They were like, what Elvira meant to these cheesy horror movies they play at midnight. Like, you could play a horror movie, but you kind of need that host.
Oh, yeah.
And what Phil did, and just how loose Phil was. I mean, there's no bullshit, pretentious showbiz anything about him. He was the guy who would play us as kids riffs from Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
This one Halloween, he dressed up as the Crow. I found out what the Crow was when I was 9 years old from PJ Fresh Phil. I shouldn't know what the Crow is at 9 years old, but I did. Well, okay, 11, but still, yeah, 11. I hope
he knows the impact that he had on a whole generation of kids, because I definitely will never forget PJ Fresh Phil, or just Phil in general.
Yeah, I tell him all the time, and he couldn't. He's the most humble, unassuming guy in the world, man. He's like such a good dude.
I'd love to have a drink with him, man.
you know what's really funny? Like, all the Turbo House people, right?
Oh yeah.
In their old location, my Christmas band, the Holiday Hooligans, Phil came and hosted one of our events at the old Turbo House location, and he was there. He was there all night taking photos and hanging out. And it's kind of weird, this little staple in time, that Dan was not involved in Turbo House yet, but Dan is a big YTV fan too.
Really?
And he's just like, when the hell did this happen? So I'm like, I think when things are less yucky, the first person I'm calling if Hooligans play Turbo House again is definitely Phil. And
did you run the karaoke at the old Turbo House?
No, I didn't. Okay. No, that would have been great though. I love karaoke.
Karaoke's awesome.
Dave Ablaze is here.
Oh shit, Dave! I'm not plugged in, man. Come on.
Oh man, Dave! I hope you were around when I was. I will sing in the YTV band.
He was sweet talking to Dave.
Yeah. Yeah. We were sweet talking Dave before. We're just like, Dave invented oxygen. Like Dave. I remember Dave Ablaze, 7 feet tall, glistening muscles, standing like a porcelain god. Standing
he still does that.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that. We dragged ourselves out of bed at 7 a.m. to go make fun of Escape the Fate once. He'll tell you that story.
Brandon's saying at Turbo House, where the fuck was I? I'm like, yeah, dude, it was 4 or 5 years ago. And he came on stage. And here's the thing, man. Here's my dying thought is that if I never get on stage again, but probably will. I mean, come on. Humans, we're tough. We're gonna get through this. But coronavirus will go away eventually, and concerts will happen, and that'll all be okay. Phil, I can say this about my musical career, dude. I've never traveled on a tour bus. I've never made a large surplus of money from doing anything musical ever. But I can say that our final song of the year he hosted, Phil came on stage and played guitar with us on a 9 Inch Nails song, Hand That Feeds, and that was awesome.
I probably would have cried. That would have been amazing.
It was just so cool to have this kind of reflection in my head, thinking, wait a second, that's the guy from the thing, and the wires are slowly connecting. You're just like, holy shit, he slept in my house last night, but it's only really kicking in right now that this is holy shit, and fucking yeah. So it's like one of those nice moments, man.
Well, my dying thought is I appreciate you putting all of this stuff together as a YTV fan, for real. Like, the fact that you have all these people that helped create that era on, and I appreciate the fact that I'm like one of the first who has nothing to do with that era. I didn't contribute a goddamn thing except for just the viewership on your show to talk about my cheesy love for 90s cartoons.
Dude, you bled for this. Look at this. Look at this glory. But yeah, man, you're the only person I know, hopefully not the last, with a student bodies tattoo. But everybody in the cast, I can say this, Victoria, who played Grace, everybody was very, very impressed with the fact that there was a student body's tattoo in existence.
Shit. Victoria was like my other young crush.
Dude, she should be your current crush. She does not age. It's funny.
She definitely is. She's beautiful.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching You, Me, and YTV. This has been absolutely awesome getting to know Justyn Vynn, and I hope you all check out his band. This is absolutely great, and I saw a comment from David Blaze today, so that is going to be my new happy dying thought, just based on the glory, the amazingness of I don't know, man. David Blaze and I knew each other when we were really young and the world was changing around us, and, you know, concerts were happening and Psychotic 4 were getting bigger. And it was just kind of funny that both him and I were kind of like the new kids in that bubble and just kind of absorbing everything. And we had each other to be like, the hell is happening? This is nuts. So yeah, that was cool. All right. Have a good night, everybody. This was a lot of fun. Hope you had fun, Justyn. I hope you come back sometime. Hope
Thanks
you come
for
back
everyone
sometime.
watching and all the comments. I anytime you want, I'll be back for sure.
Dude, we got to get even more like geeks in here, and then just try to out geek each other in our love of YTV until one of us gets served. And that would be, you know, I don't know what to call it. Some would call it pathetic. But
just call it keep it weird, man. We'll keep it weird.
There you go. All right. Keep it weird, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I actually have an outro for today. So here we go. I hope this is right and it's not porn. I hope it's not right and it's not porn.
Check out more episodes of You, Me, and YTV on Facebook and YouTube. Sweet one-of-a-kind interviews with PJ Fresh Bill, PJ Paul, Tarzan Dan, the cast of Student Bodies, the voice acting cast of Sailor Moon, and much, much more. Exclusively on You, Me, and YTV.